Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Race to Power with me, Molly Gambhir. And over the next 30 minutes, we are getting you the crucial updates on key electoral contests from around the world. We dissect the developments, we read between the lines and get you the bigger picture. Tonight, we are starting off with Pakistan. The country's election commission has announced the general elections will be held on the 11th of February. We tell you all that you need to know and the biggest concerns around the election. And from there, we move on to India, where parties are trying their best to hold on to the rebel members. We answer the biggest questions for you. And from there, we also take you to Taiwan, where a toilet paper scandal has hit the Foxconn founder Terry Guo's presidential bid. This race to power is only heating up with the election due in January. And we are starting off this edition with the latest from Pakistan, where the poll body has shared a timeline of the general elections with the top court. This comes after months of delay in the elections due to some or the other reason. The poll body also informed the Supreme Court that its delimitation exercise will be completed on the 30th of November. And this will be followed by the redrawing of the constituencies by the 29th of January, paving the way for the elections to be held. And finally, the general elections in the country will be held on the 11th of February next year. In fact, the Election Commission of Pakistan shared the dates at a hearing on the petitions calling for the timely elections in the country. Now, Pakistan, remember, has been in the grip of political uncertainty ever since the removal of Imran Khan as the Prime Minister. After losing a no-confidence motion in April 2022, the Shehbaz Sharif-led government that took over from him dissolved the National Assembly on the 9th of August this year. The Sindh and Balochistan assemblies were also prematurely dissolved to allow the electoral authority to hold elections in the country within 90 days. Now, had the assemblies been dissolved in time, the electoral body would have been constitutionally bound to hold the polls in 60 days. However, the Election Commission has decided against holding polls within the stipulated time as the 7th population and housing census had been approved. The approval made it mandatory for the Commission to hold elections only after fresh delimitations were completed in light of the census results. Let's now go straight across to the Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik, who is joining us live from outside the Election Commission of Pakistan in Islamabad. Thanks very much, Anas, for being here. If you can first of all tell us what the Election Commission, in detail, tell us what the Election Commission has stated today, and the very fact that this brings about certainty for the people of Pakistan who have been grappling with this long drawn period of uncertainty.
Certainly so. The Election Commission today, before the Supreme Court, has stated that it intends on holding the election on the 11th of February 2024, giving a certain definite date. It said through its lawyer before the Supreme Court that the electoral process, the run-up, will be completed by the 29th of January. They would ideally want the elections to be held on a Sunday. So after the 29th of January, the first Sunday falls, it is the 4th of February. But in view of the stipulated time period, and they would want to give more time for preparations to the political parties who would be participating. Therefore, it is proposed that the elections be held in Pakistan on the 11th of February 2024. That itself is a Sunday. Now, the Supreme Court asked the Election Commission to consult the Commander-in-Chief of the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and the Head of State, that is the President. Then the Chief Election Commissioner with his delegation went to the presidency. Before that, the Attorney General had also met the President. The Chief Election Commissioner proposed 3 sets of dates before the election, before the President. That first was the 28th of January, that is a Sunday. The second was the 4th of February, which is a Sunday. And the third is the 11th of February, which also is a Sunday. Now, right. Why a Sunday? Is because that they will not have to create a holiday per se, and there will be more voter turnout that would be expected. After the meeting with the President, the election commissioner, chief election commissioner, came back to where I am. Behind me is the election commission of Pakistan, the ECP. I'll just get aside and get you a sense of how it looks like, because it's a bit chaotic. There's press that's waiting right outside, and just a short while back, the Attorney General was in here. He said that there seems to be no consensus with regards to an election date. The election commission insists that the election should be held on the 11th of February. They have proposed that, but the President seemingly does not want to hold it on the 11th of February, and rather would want to hold it on an earlier stipulated date. Molly?
Anas, let me ask you for the bigger picture. Coming at a time when the economic crisis has been a huge issue on the ground, consistently pinching the people, how prepared is the country to actually, one, hold these elections, and two, to what extent will these elections actually bring about any sort of respite for the immediate challenges that the country has been dealing with, is the big question.
Last question first. We've already got the IMF delegation in the country for a periodic review, which begins tomorrow. They are here for the next 2 weeks, and the Pakistan government's standby arrangement with the IMF that ends on in the end of March 2024. So, in order for the government or for Pakistan to not have an electoral crisis, an economic crisis, they have to go into elections so that an elected government comes in, and that has the mandate, or seemingly has the mandate, to negotiate. So that does sort of clear the air. How prepared is the government, or are the stakeholders? Well, it is a process. Every 5 years in the budget as well, a pre-election budget, we see that a stipulated amount is kept for elections. So that has been granted. Right now, the challenge were two things. One was the constitutional time period, which was 90 days, and the other challenge was with regards to delimitations. The Election Commission has informed the Supreme Court that the delimitations will be completed by the 30th of November. So formally, we will be seeing the election schedule being released sometime in time. Now, what is to be noted is that the clock is ticking right now. Tomorrow, when the Supreme Court opens, the Chief Election Commissioner has to go through his lawyer and submit a reply to the Chief Justice of Pakistan saying that this will be the election date, because the Chief Justice has made it clear that all of the stakeholders would have to be in agreement and would need to sign a document with regards to the date of election that will be agreed upon, and whatever the date will be the finalized date. There will be no changes in that. That is the bigger challenge. That is the bigger challenge on the part of the Election Commission to ensure that there is a consensus. And the reason we're seeing so much of commotion right behind me and inside the office as well of the Election Commission of Pakistan. Molly?
Right. We're leaving it there for the moment. Anas, thanks very much for being here on the broadcast and helping us better understand what's really brewing on the spot. Moving on now to India, where the 5 key states are going to polls this month. It's a high-stakes game for the 2 main national parties who happen to be the main players in all the poll-bound states. The Congress and the BJP are taking no chances, especially in choosing the candidates. But as we have discussed on the show earlier, choosing the right candidates is no easy task. And choosing the candidate for a party ticket can upset others and trigger defections. And in a multi-party system like India, those denied tickets can also join other parties or contest independently, in fact. And even if they lose the election, the rebels can prevent a win for the main parties by denying them crucial votes in close fights. Now that the ticket distribution is ending and the parties have made their choice, it's time for the main parties to pacify the rebels. Although many have already thrown their hat into the electoral ring as independents, in Rajasthan, the Congress suffered the brunt of such defections in the year 2018. The party, in fact, lost no less than 24 seats to as many as 13 independents. Then this arrested their tally at a precarious 99 seats, just too short of an outright majority in a 200-member assembly. And which is why the Congress is now appealing to the rebels that they will be accommodated post the polls. The BJP is undertaking a similar exercise. In Madhya Pradesh, the Union Home Minister Amit Shah met the disgruntled leaders who did not get tickets. He tried to cajole them not to contest as independents. In fact, data from the 2018 assembly elections in the poll-bound states showing that independents and smaller parties polled 1/5 of the votes. In Chhattisgarh, independents and smaller parties polled nearly 24% votes. In Madhya Pradesh, they secured 18.09% and in Rajasthan, 22%. And in close fights, the role of the rebels becomes critical. This was evident in Madhya Pradesh in the year 2018 when the BJP secured a fractionally better vote share. But the Congress emerged as the single largest party. On to our next story now, which is about an electoral contest, a suspected bribery scandal, and toilet paper. You heard that right. But what's toilet paper got to do with an election, you ask? Let me break it all down for you. This story is from Taiwan, where the race to power is only heating up. And right now, the authorities in Taiwan are dealing with a big question. It revolves around the founder of Taiwan-based iPhone maker Foxconn, Terry Gou. Terry Gou is a presidential hopeful, and now a scandal has struck his campaign. Did the supporters of the Foxconn founder offer toilet paper in exchange for signatures for his presidential bid? An investigation has been launched to look into these claims. Let's just break it down for you. 290,000. That is the number of signatures that Terry Gou needs to have to qualify as an independent candidate. Did Gou supporters bribe people to sign for him? The claims are being investigated. 13 people have been questioned and raids have been carried out at several locations over suspected bribery in Gou's signature campaign. In fact, the prosecutors are saying that suspects offered a carton of toilet papers, to whom you ask? To the staff of a farmers association in exchange for each signature. And this case is not the only one. Around a dozen probes have been started over the signature campaign, and prosecutors are investigating 2 bribery cases linked to the campaign. The timing of these developments is very significant and raises a number of questions. It comes against the backdrop of an investigation into Foxconn that's been launched by China. And this probe by China has now become an election issue in Taiwan as well. An investigation into the Taiwan-based iPhone maker launched by China. In fact, Taiwan's Vice President Lai Ching-te, who is running for the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and is the front runner in this race to power, earlier blasted China over its probe of Foxconn. According to China's state-backed Global Times, officials conducted tax inspections at Foxconn businesses in 2 Chinese provinces. Ko Wen-je, a former Taipei mayor who is the candidate for the small Taiwan People's Party, also attacked China and demanded an explanation. Foxconn, meanwhile, maintains that legal compliance was a fundamental principle of its operations and it would actively cooperate with the relevant units on the related work and operations. The probe by Beijing earlier saw the Taiwan presidential candidates uniting against China and standing in support of Foxconn. But now Taiwan itself is probing the Foxconn founder's signature campaign. This only makes things murky. The presidential election is due to be held on the 13th of January, and this race to power is only heating up. In the 2-party political landscape of the United States, the stage is set for a hypothetical 3-way contest in the year 2024. Apart from the main rivals, the incumbent President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, this time a third contestant is gaining traction. A recent poll showing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with 22% support. The latest Quinnipiac University survey, in fact, showing that Biden got 39% of the vote, Trump with 36%, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. with 22%. The overall 22%, by the way, does not suggest that Kennedy Jr. can yet break through the 2-party system. But the bigger threat his nomination poses to Biden and Trump is the possibility of siphoning just enough votes from one of them to swing an otherwise coin flip competition. The poll surveyed 1,610 self-identified registered voters between the 26th and the 30th of October. And when the independents were removed, the poll found that in the race between Biden and Trump, 47% of the voters would support the Democratic incumbent over his Republican predecessors, 46%. Now, that result matches many other head-to-head surveys from the last few months. In any case, the overall findings suggesting that Kennedy Jr.'s independent candidacy has the potential to inject a further twist into what has long been depicted as a two-way race. The polls further revealing that Kennedy Jr. was the leading choice for the young voters between the ages of 18 and 34. 38% of the people surveyed put the environmental lawyer as their first choice. From the same age group, 32% picked Biden and 27% went for Trump. Kennedy Jr. detailing his disenchantment with partisan politics and what he called an unfair democratic primary system, declared his independent presidential bid last month.
We will make America glorious again. And we will make...
Off-year political races in the US get only a fraction of the attention as compared to presidential elections. But on Tuesday, some of these contests will be keenly watched for their significant presence of Indian American candidates running for various offices. Here's a look at some of the high-profile Indian Americans in a few key races next week. Democrat Pooja Khanna, a mental health advocate and a small business owner, is running for the Loudoun County supervisor seat in the Dulles District, Virginia. And if elected, she will be the first Asian American and Indian American woman to serve as a supervisor in the county. Neil Makhija, an attorney, educator and civic leader and lecturer at the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School, is running for Montgomery County Commissioner in Pennsylvania. And if elected, he will be the first Indian American commissioner in Pennsylvania's history. Suhas Subramaniam, a delegate serving the 87th District of Virginia, is now running for State Senate, District 32. He is a small business owner who was a tech advisor in the Obama White House. He also served on Capitol Hill as a healthcare and veterans policy aide and clerked for the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee. On to Democrat Rishi Bagga, who is running for the Florida House election and campaigning for fairness and the future of the community in Central Florida. He immigrated to the United States with his family when he was 10 years old and built a motel business from scratch. He became an attorney to fight for justice and fairness and defended the survivors of domestic violence as a prosecutor. Other candidates who will be contesting elections on the 7th of November, including Minita Sanghvi, Win Gopal, Nalini Krishnamurthy, Seema Dikshit and many others. And these candidates hope to make history and bring diverse representation to their respective positions. The political heat in Bangladesh has been triggering pitched battles on the street. Violent protests enter the third day as supporters of the opposition BNP stepped up their demand for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to resign and make way for a neutral caretaker government to conduct the elections. As the blockade by the opposition continues, the protesters vandalized and set several vehicles on fire. The police detained 4 people in the incident so far. And as of Wednesday, law enforcers detained over 100 leaders and activists of the BNP and other opposition parties. The surge in violence coming on the heels of the main opposition party threatening to boycott the elections if the Prime Minister did not step down. Hasina, who has been at the helm of affairs since 2008, has refused to give in to the opposition's demands. And on the contrary, in fact, she has urged the country's journalists to quote-unquote expose the real face of the BNP before the international community. The statements coming on the heels of the opposition party supporters allegedly attacking the journalists who were covering Hasina's October 28th rally. While the situation escalates on the ground, the country's election commission has said that it has invited representatives from the opposition parties for a dialogue. It had addressed the letter to BNP Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam at the party's central office that could not be delivered as the party office was locked, and Fakhrul himself is in jail. The BNP leader was arrested on Saturday, remember, during the ruling party's October 28th rally. The situation in Bangladesh has been volatile over a slew of allegations against Sheikh Hasina's 14-year rule. Hasina has been accused of authoritarianism, human rights violations, cracking down on free speech, and suppressing dissent by putting her critics in prison. Let's now take a look at what else is making news in the political arena around the world. The Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal skipped his scheduled appearance at the Enforcement Directorate's office on Thursday. The ED, remember, had summoned the Aam Aadmi Party chief in relation to the Delhi liquor policy case. Earlier in the day, Kejriwal left for election-bound state of Madhya Pradesh to conduct a road show in the state instead. He told the probe agency that the notice issued is quote-unquote illegal and politically motivated. And continuing with India, the Supreme Court has reserved its verdict on the petitions challenging the central government's electoral bond scheme. A 5-member bench, including Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud, has asked the Election Commission of India to furnish updated data on the funds received by all political parties through electoral bonds. It is expected to follow through with the court's orders within 2 weeks. Bhutan's king appointed a 9-member interim government on Wednesday. The government has been assigned the task of overseeing the country's parliamentary election that is scheduled to be held within 3 months. This will be the 4th election in the Himalayan nation ever since democracy was established in 2008. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. We're taking a very short break at this point. Stay tuned.